The roots of a nation, from exploration to the 13 colonies. Before the United States existed, the continent of North America was home to many diverse indigenous nations, each with their own culture, language, and ways of life. But across the Atlantic Ocean, European nations were beginning an age of exploration that would change the world forever. The search for wealth, land, and opportunity would lead explorers to these shores, and eventually to the founding of English colonies that would shape America's earliest story. Exploration and rivalry. During the 1500s and 1600s, European powers competed fiercely to explore and claim parts of the New World. Each had unique goals and strategies. Spain sought gold, glory, and God. Spanish explorers like Hernán Cortés and Francisco Pizarro conquered vast territories in Mexico and South America. They built missions and spread Catholicism, believing it was their duty to convert indigenous peoples. Spanish settlements stretched through Florida, the Caribbean, and the Southwest, laying early foundations for Hispanic culture in America. France focused less on conquest and more on trade. They explored the interior of North America along the St. Lawrence River, the Great Lakes, and the Mississippi River. The French developed a thriving fur trade with Native American tribes and built strong alliances. French explorers such as Samuel de Champlain founded Quebec, while others like La Salle claimed the Mississippi River Valley, naming it Louisiana in honor of the French king. England, arriving later, sought a mix of economic opportunity, religious freedom, and self-rule. English settlers wanted to own land and build communities. Some came for wealth, others came to worship freely and escape persecution. These different motives, Spanish conversion and control, French trade and cooperation, and English settlement and freedom, created very different patterns of colonization that shaped the Americas. 1607. Jamestown, a struggle for survival. The story of English America began in 1607, when 104 settlers arrived in Virginia and founded Jamestown, the first permanent English settlement in North America. Backed by the Virginia Company, their mission was to find gold and bring profit to England. But the colonists were unprepared for the harsh reality of the New World. They faced disease, hunger, and conflict with the Powhatan Confederacy. Many died during what became known as the Starving Time. Jamestown survived largely thanks to the leadership of Captain John Smith, who insisted that he that will not work shall not eat. Later, John Rolfe introduced tobacco as a cash crop, turning the struggling settlement into a profitable colony. Tobacco farming required large tracts of land and labor, leading to the use of indentured servants and eventually the importation of enslaved Africans, beginning the tragic spread of slavery in the colonies. In 1619, something remarkable happened in Jamestown. The creation of the Virginia House of Burgesses, the first representative assembly in the English colonies. This allowed colonists to elect leaders to make local laws, a revolutionary idea in a world ruled by kings. This was the beginning of representative government in America, and it set a powerful precedent. Colonists expected a voice in their government. 1620, the Pilgrims and the Mayflower Compact. While Jamestown was growing in the South, another group of English settlers sailed across the Atlantic seeking religious freedom. These settlers, known as the Pilgrims, arrived in 1620 aboard the Mayflower. They intended to land in Virginia, but instead reached the rocky shores of Cape Cod in present-day Massachusetts. Before leaving their ship, they signed an agreement called the Mayflower Compact. This compact was a promise to work together and make fair laws for the good of the colony. It was not just a survival plan, it was a step toward self-government. The Pilgrims believed their right to govern came from God and the consent of the governed, not from a king. The Mayflower Compact became one of the foundations of democracy in America. Faith, virtue, and community in New England. The Puritans, who arrived a decade later, also sought to build a city upon a hill, a model Christian society based on their religious beliefs. In colonies like Massachusetts Bay, Connecticut, and Rhode Island, religion and virtue played a central role in daily life.
In Connecticut, Thomas Hooker, a Puritan minister, believed that government should rest on the consent of the people.
In 1639, he helped write the Fundamental Orders of Connecticut, often called the first written constitution in America. It established rules for elections and limited the power of leaders, laying early groundwork for the U.S. Constitution. Roger Williams, another Puritan, founded Rhode Island after being banished for his belief in religious freedom. He thought that government should not control religion, a radical idea that later became part of America's First Amendment rights. These colonies showed that faith, virtue, and civic participation could work hand in hand to build stable, moral communities. Diversity in the Middle Colonies. Further south and west, the Middle Colonies, New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Delaware, were more diverse in culture, economy, and religion. William Penn, a Quaker, founded Pennsylvania as a holy experiment where all faiths could worship freely. Quakers believed in equality, peace, and fair treatment of Native Americans. Penn's colony attracted Germans, Dutch, Irish, and Swedes, each contributing to a thriving economy based on farming, trade, and skilled crafts. The fertile soil and mild climate allowed the Middle Colonies to become known as the breadbasket colonies, because they grew large amounts of grain. The mix of people and beliefs encouraged tolerance and democratic practices, making the region one of the most balanced and prosperous in colonial America. The Southern Colonies and the Plantation Economy. In the Southern Colonies, Virginia, Maryland, the Carolinas, and Georgia, the warm climate and rich soil made farming the center of life. These colonies developed a plantation system, producing crops like tobacco, rice, and indigo for export. Large plantations depended on labor, first from indentured servants and later from enslaved Africans brought through the transatlantic slave trade. Enslaved people endured harsh conditions and had no rights or freedoms, but their forced labor built much of the wealth of the South. Maryland was founded by Lord Baltimore as a refuge for Catholics, while Georgia was created by James Oglethorpe as a place for debtors and poor settlers to start anew. The Southern colonies had fewer towns and schools than the North, as plantations were spread out over wide areas. This geography, flatland, long growing seasons, and navigable rivers, shaped both their economy and their social structure. Environment and settlement patterns. Geography played a major role in how each region developed. New England's rocky soil and cold climate led to small towns and industries like shipbuilding, trade, and fishing. The Middle Colonies had fertile soil and river valleys that supported farms and growing cities. The South's warm climate allowed plantations and slavery to flourish. These physical characteristics influenced population distribution and economic activities, creating distinct regional identities that would one day shape American politics. As the colonies matured, they became more self-reliant and independent. Religious tolerance grew, especially in colonies like Rhode Island and Pennsylvania. Over time, colonists began to see themselves less as English subjects and more as Americans with unique rights and freedoms. They built schools to promote literacy, held town meetings to discuss local issues, and developed assemblies to make laws. Philosophers like John Locke and Charles de Montesquieu inspired colonists to believe in natural rights, limited government, and separation of powers, ideas that would later define the United States. The American identity emerges. By the mid-1700s, the 13 English colonies had become a land of contrasts, religious and free in the north, wealthy and enslaved in the South, and diverse in the middle. Yet despite their differences, they shared common values: faith, hard work, self-government, and a love of liberty. These values, rooted in the struggles of Jamestown, the promises of the Mayflower Compact, and the hopes of settlers seeking freedom, laid the foundation for what would one day become the United States of America.